all gonna be safe, and we're all gonna have a great time. What in the Jesus Christ was that?
Donald Trump is reportedly planning an executive order to remove all transgender members from the US military. This move would affect an estimated 15,000 active transgender service members who have been medically discharged as unfit to serve. It would also impose a ban on any transgender individuals from enlisting in the US military. This comes as all branches of armed forces are struggling to meet recruitment targets. Trump has criticized the so-called woke practices in the military. He claims that senior officers are more concerned about diversity and inclusion than on preparing the US military for combat. The proposed policy echoes Trump's first term, during which he barred transgender individuals from enlisting in the army, while allowing those already serving to retain their position. When President Biden took over, he reversed the order. But under this proposal, even those with decades of service under their belt, they will be forced out. Transgender individuals warn that this ban will cause them personal hardship, damaging military morale and readiness. For more on this story, visit thetimes.com.
The U.S. military will no longer allow trans people to join the armed forces and will stop gender-affirming care for existing service members. In a new memo filed by the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Monday the 10th of February to the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C., it said, "Effective immediately, all new accessions for individuals with a history of gender dysphoria are paused, and all unscheduled, scheduled, or planned medical procedures associated with affirming or facilitating a gender transition for service members are paused." This follows an executive order by President Donald Trump in January, which said that expressing a false gender identity divergent from an individual's sex cannot satisfy the rigorous standards necessary for military service. According to the Human Rights Campaign, there are an estimated 15,000 active-duty transgender and non-binary personnel in the U.S. military. In a recent interview with CNN, Emily Schilling, a U.S. Navy commander and transgender woman, said,
"All I want to do is keep serving. I've done that almost 20 years. I want to keep going. I have no desire to get out." And the feedback that I've had from prior to transition to after is that it's made me actually a better leader, able to connect with my people more and in a more authentic way, because I can meet them wherever they are. When people get to know somebody who's transgender, we're able to kind of change the narrative. I think there's a lot of misconception of what it's like to live in my shoes or live in my boots, as it was.
So after 11 years of faithful service to my country, prioritizing my work over my family, over my physical health, my mental health, I'm finally going through this med board process. And I should be focusing on my next steps, my next chapter, and I should be worrying about interviews and where am I going to live, as far as, am I gonna stay here in Texas? Am I gonna go back home to Florida? Like, where are we gonna vacation? What am I gonna wear to my first interview? What kind of job do I want? And instead, I'm worrying about my safety, the safety of my family, our rights as human beings, my right to health care. Because while I honorably have served for the last 11 years, for 9 of those years I have openly served as a transgender service member. I was one of the few 15,000 across the forces that raised their right hand to serve this country. And yet now every time I turn on the news or I scroll on social media, those very rights are being disturbed, are being taken away, are being threatened. I'm just at a loss for words. To those that believe that transgender individuals shouldn't be within the ranks of the military, most of which who make that statement are not currently serving themselves, I challenge you, screw that, I dare you to go to your nearest recruiter's office and raise your right hand to serve this country. And I bet you'll learn a lot about yourself. a lot about those that you serve with, and that those differences amongst the ranks are what make our military force what they are. I have sat next to, slept next to, ate with people from all around the world. And the life lessons and stories, friends, and ultimately family that I've created from within those differences is nothing that I can ever describe. We say we have a brotherhood, a sisterhood within the military, and that is very true. And that's because we celebrate our differences and not let those differences tear us apart. We need to do better.
So I made a video highlighting that the Trump administration is trying to kick out transgender service members from the military, which I think is really funny, especially since there are plenty of people in the military who cannot pass their PT test or make weight, right, and couldn't run 2 miles with a gun to their head, but this is what you want to focus on. Anyways, there's a lot of comments on that video. I'm not going to make a response to all the different comments. However, I did want to highlight one. What I think is really funny about a lot of these comments is that I would say the vast majority of people who have such a big fucking issue with me being in the military have never served. There are definitely some that are either in or have been in that have an issue with it. Usually, I would say out of that population, the majority of people who have an issue with it are old white men who served. And it's not having anything to do with the fact that they served and they have experience from it. It has to do with the fact that they're an old white man and they're conservative. I do have a theory, however, on why the majority of people who have an issue are not people who have been in the military or not veterans. And my theory goes like this. When you enlist in the United States military and you get shipped off to boot camp, basic, whatever, right? There are so many trials that you go through, and you meet people from not even all around the country, all around the world. When I was in basic, I met people who had enlisted to get citizenship or to get some of their family citizenship, were born in different countries around the world. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, I mean, you fucking name it. All different kinds of backgrounds, all different kinds of cultures, fucking everybody. So you have this big, huge group of people who probably disagree on just about fucking everything, right? And we all come together as one to get a job done or a mission accomplished. And I think that is one of the most important things that I've taken from the military, and probably the most beautiful thing about the military that I've experienced. And so my point being, those who have served, have experienced this, will know what the fuck I'm talking about when they listen to this video, right? And that's why the vast majority of them do not give a fuck if I'm in the military, because at the end of the day, I'm just another one of those individuals, and we all come together to get the fucking job done. One last note I will add, I do think it's hilarious how many people are saying kick them out. Meanwhile, we're at an all-time low for recruitment. You want to kick out all these able-bodied soldiers to do a job that you don't want to do so you can sit on your ass on your couch at home, right? You want to kick them out when we're already at an all-time low. For what? Like, literally, it's just such a waste of time and energy, all because you want to discriminate against a minority. Like, it just make it make sense.
All right, so before I answer this question, I would just want to preface it with, I'm in no means an expert. I just read the policy that came down, and this is what I gathered from it. So if you have been in the military for less than 6 years, you'll be separated and you won't be eligible for separation pay. If you have served 6 years or more, you're eligible for separation pay, which is basically them paying you out for what would have been your 20 years service. It's the same thing that could happen when you go through med board. If you're found to be at least 30% DOD disabled, then you are eligible for a retirement and then getting your VA benefits. But if you are found less than 30%, then you are medically separated and you're given a lump sum separation pay to pay you out for what would have been a 20-year service. So for somebody like me, being an E5 with 11 years of service, I think the payout is like $100-something thousand, but then obviously it gets taxed and you get a severance pay of like $75,000, and that's it. It sounds great in theory, like you are walking away with something if you have more than 6 years or 6 years or more of service, but for those that haven't reached that point yet, they're literally walking away with nothing. They can still go to the VA and try to do VA claims, but trying to fight for your VA claims on the outside, like once you're out of the military, is a lot harder to do than when you're inside the military. So it's, yeah, hopefully a lot of the individuals that are being separated will have had 6 years or more, so that way they can at least get that severance pay.